The stasis pod hissed open with a faint exhale of vapor, revealing Harrison Cole's pale, sweat-slicked face. His skin glistened under the harsh fluorescence of the medical bay, and the red flush along his cheeks was unmistakable. Fever. Again. Subject is experiencing elevated thermoregulation, possible internal infection, said Veln, peering into the pod. The alien's large orb-like eyes narrowed slightly, and he tapped his claw against the data tablet. This is the third time this cycle. How are humans not extinct? Harrison groaned, pushing himself up with the strength of a damp towel. Because we drink water and suffer quietly, he muttered hoarsely. Veln looked over his shoulder. Did he speak? Yes, he did, answered Muriel, another student medic with a pale blue hide and a body built like a reed. And he's delirious again. Note that under neural disorientation. I'm not delirious, Harrison said, wobbling as he sat upright. I have the flu. It happens. You get a fever, you rest, you sweat it out. You boil? Veln's upper lid twitched. You intentionally allow your core temperature to rise beyond your species' safe limit? We don't want to. It's just how our immune system responds. It's not ideal, but it's normal. Veln turned to Marilel. This species is not viable for galactic integration. Their biology is hostile to itself. Glad to be here, Harrison muttered, sliding his legs out of the pod. His knees buckled. He would have slammed face first into the floor if Muriel hadn't caught him mid-fall. You need to remain horizontal, she said. I need broth, he croaked. What is broth? Veln asked, genuinely baffled. Is that a pharmaceutical? No, it's soup. Chicken soup, preferably. Veln blinked. You are medically compromised and request liquid meat? Harrison sighed. It's not about the meat. It's the nutrients, the heat, the hydration. It helps. It's not magic. It just works. I shall log this under unverified superstition. Fine, Harrison said, clutching his stomach. But if I die, I'm haunting you. Veln hesitated, unsure whether that was a literal threat or another inexplicable human idiom. The Galactic Medical Exchange Program had not anticipated human fragility. The humans themselves had warned them, of course, in the endless stacks of paperwork and orientation seminars. But Vel, Morel, and the other alien students had assumed exaggeration, a sort of cultural dramatism. That was before Harrison Cole collapsed for the second time in 1 week, and now again. The Terran immune response was a mess. Their fevers could spike past 40 degrees Celsius. Their intestines betrayed them with viruses that required days, sometimes weeks of recovery, and their stubbornness was unparalleled. And yet you do not seek immediate medical intervention, Veln said, pacing beside Harrison's recovery bed. Because I don't need drugs, Harrison said from under a thermal blanket. I need time. And soup. Again with the soup, Muriel said, leaning over a tray of instruments. What is this obsession? You wouldn't get it, Harrison said. It's cultural, it's comfort, look, can someone just make it? Veln frowned. You want us to prepare a culinary concoction instead of using intravenous stabilizers? Yes, Harrison said. I'm not trying to insult your medicine, but sometimes, for humans, food is medicine. You have no idea how unscientific that sounds. Try it, Harrison said, his eyes fluttering shut. You'll see. Vel did not cook. Neither did Muriel. But the exchange program had included a human cultural liaison, and after much reluctant discussion, they located her. Jara Melvine, stationed 2 decks below, was already simmering broth on a portable induction coil by the time Velm and Muriel arrived. You're here about Harrison? Jara said, not looking up as she stirred. Yeah, he gets like this. Always refuses synthetics when he gets sick. Told me to bring chicken soup if he ever got space flu again. There is no such thing as space flu, Veln said. Well, he's got whatever passes for it on this ship, and this, she said, lifting a ladle of steaming soup, is going to fix him up. Veln leaned forward, sniffing the air. What is that smell? Garlic, onion, chicken bones, carrots, celery, black pepper, and thyme. Muriel recoiled slightly. You consume bone? It leaches minerals into the broth. Calcium, magnesium, collagen, Jara said. It's not just taste, it's structure. Velm shook his head. This is madness. Human madness, Jera said, pouring the soup into a thermosailed container. And it works. Harrison took the first spoonful like a man dying of thirst. The warmth hit his stomach and he let out a groan of relief. Oh yeah, he said. That's the stuff. Velm watched intently. You feel improved? Not magically better, Harrison replied, blowing on the next spoonful. But it helps, soothes the throat, keeps me hydrated, gives me energy. It's comforting. Velm said. Comfort is not quantifiable. Maybe not in your species, Jarrus said, but for us, emotional relief affects physical recovery. Mariel tilted her head. This is deeply inefficient. We're not efficient, Harrison said, finishing the bowl. We're resilient. Velm turned to Mariel. We must present this to the clinical board. You're not presenting soup to the board, Harrison said. Oh, we are, Velm said. They must see how bad human fever truly is, and how illogically you treat it. The boardroom was filled with beings of every shape and pigment, some gelatinous, some crystalline, others wrapped in layers of protective fabric. All were esteemed medical minds, and all were deeply unimpressed. You are telling me, said Director Sarn, a towering figure with 4 glimmering eyes, that your subject refused temperature-suppressant injections for this, broth? Yes, Director, Velen said. He insisted on it. And you allowed this? I did not believe it would have any effect, Velen said. But the human's biomarkers stabilized within 4 hours. His fever began to break. Several murmurs passed through the room. You are suggesting, Sarn said slowly, that a cultural food item outperformed our standard treatments? Not outperformed, Morel said, but it contributed significantly, enough that we must consider the psychosomatic component of human illness. Or, Sarn said, humans are biologically catastrophic and rely on mythical food elixirs to survive their own immune systems. That's not entirely wrong, Harrison said, entering the room supported by Jara. You should not be on your feet, Velen said. I'm not, I'm on hers. Harrison leaned heavily on Jara's shoulder. But I'm here because you need to hear this. Sarn crossed his arms. Speak then, human. Fever sucks, Harrison said. It burns your energy, makes your body ache, messes with your head. You're cold, then hot, then cold again. You lose your appetite, and you feel alone. Soup doesn't just feed us. It reminds us we're not alone, that someone cared enough to make it. That's medicine, too. The room fell into brief silence. Then Sarn rose. Your species is unique. Thanks, Harrison said, coughing into his elbow. We get that a lot. Veln sat in the observation chamber later that day, watching as Muriel documented the new protocol options. Do you believe them? Muriel asked. Veln drummed his claws against the table. I believe the results. I do not understand them, but they are real. Shall we include chicken soup in the human medical supply? Veln sighed. Yes. Label it Class C cultural supplement. Muriel grinned. You're warming to them. No, Veln said. I am simply tired of watching them sweat themselves into unconsciousness. From the medbay, Harrison's voice called out. Vel, think I could get another bowl? Veln stood. You may, but you will eat it while lying down. Deal. Velna shook his head. Worst species I've ever studied. But he was already fetching a ladle. 3 days after the soup incident, Harrison was back on his feet and prowling the research lab in borrowed slippers, a thermal mug clutched in both hands. He looked like a man who had been dragged through a recycling chute and then offered a lukewarm apology. His hair resembled a failed attempt at static electricity experimentation, and his gait was somewhere between a shuffle and a protest. Veln stood by an isolation chamber adjusting the filtration settings. You are not cleared for physical activity. I'm not sprinting a marathon. I'm walking. Inside. Slowly. You were unconscious for 11 hours. Yeah, and now I'm not. Amazing how that works. You are not permitted in the lab while under post-viral restrictions. I'm not here to lick the centrifuge, Veln. I'm here because your diagnostic overlays were misaligned. Again, Velnin looked up. The overlays were calibrated using tri-spectrum resonance. They are flawless. Then why did your blood panel think I had molybdenum poisoning? Velin paused. Because, Harrison continued, taking a long sip from his mug, you forgot to exclude iron-heavy proteins from the baseline. Again. Ass is not possible. Harrison reached over to the console and tapped 3 commands in sequence. The screen flickered, then highlighted the mismatched protein weights in vivid orange. Your system's treating hemoglobin like a contaminant. Veln stared at the display. That would explain the anomalous readings in Subject 3H. Who isn't poisoned, by the way, just anemic. Give them spinach. Veln turned away from the console. Why did you not report this from your quarters? Because I was bored out of my skull. Do you know what it's like being forced to lie down when your brain wants to fix things? Rest is part of recovery. Only if your definition of rest includes watching ceiling panels and arguing with yourself about plasma resonance curves. You argued with yourself. Only lost twice. Veln's lateral eyes twitched. You are not a normal member of your species. Thank you. That was not a compliment. Still taking it as one. Veln exhaled in a short vibrating whistle and turned back to the isolation chamber. Inside, a Cillian patient floated in a nutrient gel, their translucent skin pulsing with irregular bioluminescent waves. Harrison watched silently for a moment. They're not stabilizing, he said quietly. No, Velin admitted. Their condition is deteriorating. The immunoabsorption rate is not responding to the cytokine inhibitors. Is it viral? Parasitic? Can it cross species? Unlikely. Their biochemistry is incompatible with human physiology. Good. I don't think I can handle another fever so soon. Then leave the lab. I will, Harrison said, after we fix the overlays on the other 3 terminals. Otherwise, your next patient's going to be declared radioactive and tossed into a decontamination loop. Veln stared at him for a long moment. You are insufferable. That's what makes me effective. 4 hours later, Harrison was back in the recovery lounge, legs propped on the armrest of a chair not designed for human vertebrae, sorting through protein-binding charts. Muriel entered carrying a tray of nutrient pouches and dropped it onto the table. You're not supposed to be here. I outranked the sign on the door. No, you don't. Well, it's not fighting me. Muriel narrowed her eyes. You're still febrile. I'm warm. That's different. Your internal temperature is above 38.3 Celsius. I'm not combusting, I'm metabolizing aggressively. That is not a recognized medical justification. Neither was soup, Harrison said, flipping open a new chart. And yet, here we are. Muriel sat down opposite him. Do you ever stop contradicting protocol? Only when protocol stops contradicting common sense. You are not a physician. I'm an engineer. That does not qualify you to override clinical data. No, Harrison said, pulling up a molecular map, but it does help when your clinical data is being misread because someone forgot to recalibrate the spectrometer after a decacycle maintenance flush. Mariel's face paled slightly. You didn't. I didn't, she admitted, but the shift before mine did. Harrison handed her the display. The binding curves are off by 2%. That's enough to make your entire anemia database invalid. Muriel leaned back. Why did no one notice? Because they weren't looking for it. You assume equipment is right until it's obviously wrong. Humans assume equipment is wrong until proven guilty. That is deeply inefficient, yet undeniably effective. Muriel studied the data. You should not be capable of this level of analysis while still recovering. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't. Still counts. The door hissed open and a tall, angular figure entered. Dr. Rolek, a senior xenopathologist with 6 eyes and a voice like rusting metal. He carried a small vial in a hermetically sealed case. Who authorized this human's presence here? I did, Muriel said without hesitation. Rolek's upper set of eyes narrowed. On what grounds? Diagnostic recalibration? He identified a chain error in the protein synthesis index. Rallick turned to Harrison, who was now casually flipping through a cell culture report. You are not trained in immunobioanalytics. No, but I'm very good at finding patterns in broken systems. Rallick set the vial down. Then find the one in this. Harrison picked it up and examined the label. Unknown pathogen, isolated from a Gorthon scout? Yes. Symptoms? Neurological degradation, local tissue crystallization, and progressive memory loss. Sounds like prion behavior. There are no structural proteins. Harrison tapped the side of the case. Then it's mimicking protein folding. Synthetic, maybe? Possibly. We found traces of engineered nucleotides. Mind if I run it through the human microbiome filter? Rallick raised an eyebrow. You expect to find a match? No. But if it reacts to our gut flora, we might be able to bait it into revealing its replication method. That is speculative. Most breakthroughs are. Rallick gestured toward the analysis chamber. Proceed. As Harrison moved to the console, Maria leaned toward Rallick. He's still febrile. So are most geniuses, Rallick replied. The filter process took 20 minutes. At the end, a minor spike appeared in one of the simulation chambers. It responded to lactobacillus, Harrison said. It's targeting fermentation byproducts. Why? Could be looking for metabolic triggers. If it senses lactic acid, it thinks the host is a viable environment. Rallick leaned in. Then we flood the system with false positive. Exactly. Give it a buffet of dead ends. Rallick looked at Muriel. Prepare a simulation. Use synthetic analogs. Avoid live tissue for now. Muriel nodded. As they moved to the simulation bay, Harrison leaned briefly against the wall, the energy draining from his face. You should rest, Muriel said. I will. When we've stopped this thing from eating someone's brain. Rallick didn't turn. Let him work. His fever is doing more for our research than half the department's conscious minds. Muriel shook her head. Humans. You overheat and invent counter-bio-weapons in the same breath. Harrison grinned faintly. We multitask under pressure. Rallick pressed a control panel. Let's see if your madness saves a life. And the simulation began. By the second rotation after the simulation, the synthetic decoy protocol had been refined, tested, and administered to the Cillian patient. The pathogen, tricked into chasing a maze of false metabolic signals, collapsed into inert strands within 6 hours. Muriel documented the immune rebound markers while Rallick prepared a full report for the Galactic Medical Archives. No one said the word miracle, but the word impossible was quietly removed from 3 different sub-reports. Harrison, meanwhile, was asleep in the diagnostics closet. Jara found him curled around a stack of magnetic reels, one slipper missing, his forehead pressed against the base of an old thermal printer. She didn't wake him. Instead, she left a sealed hydropack and a folded note that read simply, "You win. Now, don't die." He slept for 11 more hours. By the time he wandered back into the med bay, the crisis had passed. No alarms, no flickering status panels, no shouting. Just the low, rhythmic hum of a station no longer on the brink. Veln was adjusting a fluid regulator near an open nutrient tank. His expression, if one could call it that, hovered somewhere between begrudging contemplation and mild irritation. You missed the debrief, he said without turning. I was unconscious. You are frequently unconscious. Statistically speaking, only about once every 70 hours. Veln turned, holding a vial up to the light. We submitted your name to the Procedural Citation Committee. Harrison blinked. Wait, what? You will be credited in the medical archive under Auxiliary Cross-Species Innovation. Temporary. Why temporary? They are reviewing whether sleep-deprived engineering qualifies as a legitimate diagnostic method. Fair. Veln placed the vial onto a tray. You will also be required to attend a procedural conduct session. Will there be snacks? No. I might be busy then. You are not, Veln paused. But you are. No longer restricted to quarters. Harrison leaned against the observation rail, stretching the stiffness out of his shoulders. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me on this station. I doubt that. No, seriously. Valn adjusted the ambient temperature settings. The Cillian patient regained full orientation this morning. That's good. They requested to meet you. I declined. Also fair? They believed you were some sort of hallucination. I get that a lot. There was a short pause. Then Veln tapped a control pad, and the nutrient tank sealed with a quiet hiss. Why did you push yourself? He asked. Harrison took a while before answering. Because I knew I could help. Because I've been the one lying in that tank, waiting for someone else to figure it out. And because sitting still drives me insane. Veln nodded once. Humans are difficult to manage. Try being one. Muriel stepped in from the corridor, a data slate tucked under her arm. The simulation logs are complete, she said, and the Cillian consulate issued a commendation. Let me guess, Harrison said. They want to send me soup. Muriel didn't blink. They do not understand soup. No one really does. She handed Veln the slate. Also, a shipment of Terran foodstuffs arrived in the cargo bay, per Director Sarn's request. Harrison raised an eyebrow. They're stocking chicken soup now? 6 varieties, including one labeled Spicy Noodle Instant, which appears to contain neither identifiable spice nor discernible chicken. That's the best kind. Well, because it lies to your face and still makes you feel better. Muriel shook her head fractionally. Your species is not medically sound. Yet here we are, not dead. Velnan turned back to the console. We may need to update the interspecies medical compatibility charts. Again, let me guess, Harrison said. Human entries now have a may refuse treatment in favor of nostalgic food clause? Worse. Worse? There is a new section titled Psychosomatic Culinary Interventions. Harrison grinned. Told you soup mattered? I still do not understand it, Valen admitted, but I no longer dispute its effects. Muriel glanced between the two of them. If we are finished celebrating irrational behaviors, we have to recalibrate the tissue scanner for the next cycle. I'll help, Harrison offered. You're still in recovery. I'm ambulatory, that's enough. You wearing mismatched slippers? Then I'm clearly fine. Muriel handed him a diagnostic wand. Try not to reprogram anything unless it's on fire. No promises. They moved to the scanner chamber. The equipment was old by galactic standards, its casing scuffed, its inputs temperamental. Harrison crouched next to the main interface, tapping through calibration prompts. Muriel stood at the diagnostic panel, reading off the fluctuation rates. After 10 minutes of quiet work, she said, You are not what I expected. Most people expect more confidence or less sarcasm, more stability, less improvisation. Harrison nodded. We're not great at following the manual, but we tend to write new ones when we survive long enough. You're not trained in this field. Nope. Yet you corrected 2 systemic diagnostic errors, solved a parasitic misclassification, and invented a fake protein buffet. I had a good week. You should not be here. Probably not. Muriel didn't look up from the screen. But I'm glad you were. They finished the recalibration in silence. Hours later, Harrison sat in the galley alone, a bowl of rehydrated noodles steaming in front of him. The station lights dimmed into evening mode, casting long shadows across the floor. He stirred the noodles slowly, watching the steam rise. Veln approached, holding a cup of nutrient broth. He sat without asking. You don't eat, Harrison said. I do not require sustenance in that form, but I can appreciate the ritual. They sat in silence for a while. Eventually, Veln asked, Do you believe your kind is suited for galactic integration? Harrison blew on his noodles. We're messy, emotional, stubborn. We break things. Valnez sipped his broth. Yes. But we fix them, we show up, we try again. Valen considered that. You are unpredictable. Only if you expect logic every time. Noted? They ate, or rather, Harrison ate, and Veln participated. When the bowl was empty, Harrison leaned back and sighed. You know, I think I'm finally not feverish. Congratulations, you are now merely irritating. Harrison grinned. Progress. Later, as he returned to his bunk, he passed Meryl near the observation deck. She was watching the stars scroll by. Hey, he said. Rest, she replied without turning. For once, I think I will. He walked away quietly. Muriel watched the stars a little longer. Then she opened a file on her slate and added a note. Human diagnostic behavior, erratic, effective. Response to illness, illogical, adaptive. Conclusion, retain one in every medbay, just in case. She closed the file and smiled, not with her mouth, but with the subtle ripple of her dorsal crest, a sign of quiet satisfaction among her kind. The station drifted on through the void, peaceful for once, with a full archive, a healed patient, and one less mystery. No one mentioned the soup again.